I kind of have. No offense to them, but we're not going to talk about that anymore. It's like, God, just have it on the app so we can make the moves, but whatever. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the NFL Live Before Lock show presented by PrizePicks. I'm Eric Lindquist, excited to be talking a little bit of NFL here on this beautiful, beautiful Monday with two of my friends. They've become stalwarts here of this Monday night show. I'm looking forward to the game, but I'm more so looking forward to talking about the game with my friends. That's Matt Savoca. That's Neil Orfield. Let's start with Mr. Matt Savoca. He's at Draftaholic over on the Twitter sphere. You got to go check him out there. He's a good person doing good things here at Awesemo.com. How you doing, my dude?
Hey, I'm doing well. I ran a crunch last night, and I think there hasn't really been any big news today, so I think I'm set. No, I'm joking. There has been so much we need to dig into. Some inactives, some late scratches due to COVID. Lots to get into this hour.
'Tis the season, right? Holiday cheer. Everybody's getting together so all can hear. And I fear that it would appear that there is... Okay, that's all I got. It's just really bad. It's COVID everywhere in the NBA, the NFL. I enjoyed that. Whatever. You guys are used to this by now. Neil Orfield, save me from myself at PlayerQDFS. How you doing, my dude? How are we going to win $1 million tonight?
Yeah, no, I love that poem. That was beautiful. Thank you for that. I'm not going to try to add on to it. I thought that it was just perfect the way it was. I don't know how we're going to win $1 million tonight. I don't have any takes as strong as Gabriel Davis. We loved Gabriel Davis last week. That worked out. I don't know that I have anybody that I'm like, this guy seems really great today. There's a lot of players that we can play, but I'm really looking forward to this game. It's also the last week of the season for best ball, the last week of the season for most regular season fantasy leagues. So it's going to be a really fun one to monitor, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
As am I. A lot of you guys here in the chat already. No news. Yeah, there's some news. Brian Train, my guy, always in the chat hanging out. Everybody here, hit the like button. We've already got 600 lovely people. I'm sure we're going to be up over 1,000 in no time. So just kind of get used to that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you haven't checked us out before, I guarantee you the water's warm here. You'll enjoy it. But yeah, we have a lot of news that kind of popped up right from the get-go here. Jalen Ramsey, Tyler Higbee on the COVID list. It's massive news. Those are two massive players here for this football team. Let's start with you, Matt Savoca, considering you're always so good at staying updated here with some of the inactives as we go forward here, looking over at PFF, a number of other places. But what do you kind of see and be the ramifications? See what I did there? The ramifications.
Oh, wow.
Of this news.
And that's the show, everyone. Thanks a lot.
Go ahead.
Well, there really is a lot to get into here. So let's start with some of the easier news that happened a little bit earlier in the day. First of all, Chase Edmonds not activated from IR, and so that means James Conner is going to have that backfield locked up to himself. Darrell Henderson tested positive for COVID on Saturday, so that we knew Sony Michel was going to be one of the best value options on the slate going into today. But then the big news, Tyler Higbee and Jalen Ramsey both test positive here. They were expected to be one or two of the most highly utilized Rams players on their respective sides of the ball. Tyler Higbee had a 96% snap share since week 10, really since Robert Woods went down. That's second only to Cooper Kupp. So clearly a big gap there. And I think this changes the outlook of the entire Arizona offense. You can't do certain things that you were expecting to do without Ramsey on the field. Easy as that.
No doubt about it. Simple as that. Yeah, same thing. How are we thinking about this, Neil? How do you feel this absence right from the get-go of Tyler Higbee is going to impact the passing game. It's strange because yes, the spread did change half a point here. You're getting the full 3 now going towards Arizona. Obviously, Jalen Ramsey, an important part of that defense. But with Tyler Higbee, how are you kind of seeing this impact some of these Rams pass catchers?
Yeah, well, I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys about that because I don't really know what to expect. I feel like Matt might have a better take on this than I do in terms of what we can actually expect from the Rams. I'm not really sure what to expect in terms of, I mean, our projections seem to suggest that they're going to mostly use Kendall Blanton to fill in for Tyler Higbee. Looks like we have a pretty solid projection on Kendall Blanton, but I don't know if how likely it is that they're just going to go to more using Ben Skowronek more, having more wide receivers out there as opposed to 12 personnel. I'd be interested to hear what Matt has to say about that. We'll get to that later on in the show, but yeah, I'm not really sure what to make of it. My plan is to kind of spread it out. I'm going to have more Skowronek in the field. I'm also going to have plenty of Blanton, and I'm going to throw in some Bryson Hopkins as well, because at this point, I don't really have a strong feeling for what's going to happen. Hopefully, Matt can kind of help us out there.
If you recognize none of the names that Neil just said, you're in the right place because we're going to break all of that down for you because somebody's going to win $1 million with a really, really dumb lineup. I just get the feeling. So I want to build that dumb lineup. You guys are going to be able to help me do that. Again, that's Matt Savoca, Neil Orfield. Let's get to it, shall we, gents? Let's talk position by position like we always do here on this show. And we've got 2 really, really fun quarterbacks here in this game. Right from the get-go, 51.5 total. It's dropped down to 51. And then that half point seems like it's gone towards the Arizona side, open 2.5. Now it's up to 3. Half a point only for Jalen Ramsey and Tyler Higbee. But that's how important key numbers can be here in Vegas. Regardless, big total. We're looking at offense. These quarterbacks are projected very tightly within a very tight window of each other. Kyler Murray, 23.24 that we're looking at over on DK, 11.2 for him there, and 10.4 here at Matt Stafford. Starting with the road team, Matt Stafford. Let's go to you, Mr. Savoca, to start off. How are you looking at Matt Stafford in this pass-happy offense?
I think Matt Stafford has a high probability of getting to 300 passing yards. The Rams offense has not been strong against good opponents in the second half of the season. It's been that simple. They've beaten up on bad teams just like they did last week against the Jaguars, but they have not shown up against quality opponents basically since week 6 this season. So I do think that Matthew Stafford can get to a solid 300-yard bonus if you're playing on DraftKings, but I think he's more of a floor play than a ceiling play tonight, essentially because he can't get there with his legs. And there is downside in the fact that these two teams already met, and Arizona was clearly the better team at that day. So I'm going to have plenty of Matthew Stafford. It's hard to get away from a quarterback in a single game slate, especially on FanDuel or Yahoo. But I think I'm going to be going elsewhere, or certainly prioritizing elsewhere at the captain spot or MVP.
Yeah, it's interesting because we talk about Kyler Murray and his ability to run on the ground, but he's still, I mean, last week was a little bit of an outlier for his season. Maybe he's back healthy. They had the week 12 bye. That's in addition to 4 weeks that he had missed previously there, weeks 9 through 11. So 4 total weeks that he missed. He attempted 10 rushing attempts, 59 yards, but he's averaging under 25 rushing yards per game here on the season. It hasn't been the Kyler Murray of old, or I mean, it's 2 years into his career. Kyler Murray of old, where he's just running around, adding such value with his legs. Last week was the first time we've seen it in a long time. And yes, he's been handing the Rams a lot of problems here in previous games, specifically that 37-20 smashing that was not even that close of a game in their last matchup. But Neil, how do you look at Matthew Stafford here in this game?
Yeah, so it's an interesting spot because we actually have negative leverage on Matthew Stafford at captain. We have him at 8.7% projected ownership at captain, 6.8% captain optimal. I'm actually over the field currently over our projected ownership. I just think I'm going to be doing some lineups where I have Matthew Stafford at captain and then a couple Rams pass catchers other than Cooper Kupp, just because I think it's an interesting spot. It kind of goes against the tools though. So I don't know that he is my favorite captain spot. I'm getting a little bit over the field just because that's pretty low ownership for a quarterback at captain. And even without using his legs, I just feel like he's going to be throwing the ball so many times that if he spreads it out, he still has some shot at being the captain. You do run the risk though of if he's really concentrated on one receiver, then that receiver is probably going to be the captain, the best captain instead of Matthew Stafford, I'm just going to be taking some chances there, just because I feel like they have a number of receiving options that I'm interested in. So I'll have some. I'll be over the field on Matthew Stafford at captain, but the tools suggest that he has negative leverage, so I don't know that it's something that I would strongly recommend. It's just something that I'm going to be taking some shots on. And then in the flex spot, I am also going to be over the field. I have him 62% in my flex. We only have him projected for 42.6% ownership in the flex. I just think that Matthew Stafford is a good enough quarterback, high volume enough quarterback that I want to be getting there. So yeah, I'm going to be playing plenty of Matthew Stafford today.
How many pass catchers do you have a group with when you play him in the captain spot? How many pass catchers are you looking to add to Matthew Stafford in the captain spot?
So I think that if you have Matthew Stafford in the captain spot, you probably want at least 2 pass catchers. I don't have that forced in right now. Maybe I actually should. I'm probably going to change this because I really think that you should have at least 2 pass catchers. Currently, I just have a group where I give boost to all of his pass catchers: Odell, Cup, Jefferson, Skowronek, Blanton, and Hopkins. I give boost to all of those guys with Stafford at captain, but I actually think that it's probably smart if you're playing Stafford at captain to force in 2 pass catchers. So I might actually change that, and after I run that, maybe I'll get a little bit less because the more rules you impose, the more restrictions you impose, the less you kind of get to those plays. But I do think that in general, if you're playing Stafford at captain, it's probably a good idea to be playing at least 2 pass catchers, because if he's concentrated, like I said, if he's concentrated on any one receiver, that receiver is probably going to be the captain instead of Stafford.
I was leading the witness just in case because I have that rule in place and I just thought it was a good rule. It made sense to me. If he's going to achieve a 30-point ceiling, watch, he's going to totally get that goal line QB sneak a la Tom Brady, and I'm going to be so miserable. But such is life. Matthew Stafford, I think we've kind of covered that. But Matt Savoca, Kyler Murray, we talked about him just here on the onset, under 25 rushing yards per game, but there's no doubt he has massive upside anytime he sees the field. PFF, they've dropped this team, the Rams, from number 1 projected defense to, with Ramsey out, he's the number 2 projected defense. So they're still pretty freaking good here on the road, probably looking at, I mean, this is a gigantic game for both teams, but definitely Arizona having the upper hand 10-2 and looking at kind of starting to put some distance between some of these other teams in the NFC for that 1 seed. But Kyler Murray's going to go out there and try to do his best to make that happen. How do you look at him in this ball game?
Yeah, I am over the field on Kyler Murray. I just think that his ceiling is unprecedented, maybe outside of Cooper Kupp. I know that he hasn't been a consistent rusher in the yardage department, but he's still getting all the opportunity I want for a quarterback. He's second among all quarterbacks in red zone carries per game and third in pure carries per game. And that's on top of being a fairly efficient quarterback this year, number 1 in yards per attempt and adjusted yards per attempt. You know, he threw for 123 yards last game against the Bears. That's on 8.2 yards per attempt. He's fine. He's just really good efficiency. If you're over 8.0, that's highly correlated with wins, although QB wins, not a good stat to look at. I mean, yes, he gets the 2 rushing touchdowns, which really helps his day. I think that against the Rams here, there are so many ways, so many outs for Kyler Murray that I want to have plenty of him, including at the captain or the MVP spot. Especially with the fact that the Arizona offense is kind of a spray and pray offense on its own anyway. There's a lot of uncertainty in the receiving core, so why not go back to that certainty when you also have the ceiling created by his rushing upside?
Yeah, and Kyler Murray's he's just probably healthier than he's been in a long time. I think that has to be something that we factor in as well. He's just healthier than he's been in a very, very long time, coming off of a 4-week sit down and relax here. We're in a good spot. They were still able with Colt McCoy to be functional. But how are you looking at it, Neil? Over or under the field on one Kyler Murray today?
I'm in the same boat. I'm over the field on Kyler Murray in both captain and flex spot. I'm actually surprised that I don't have like 100% Kyler Murray. He's cheaper than Cooper Kupp. He doesn't project as well as Cooper Kupp, but man, I think the upside is there for Kyler just about as much as it is for Cooper Kupp. Yeah, I have over 60% in the flex spot. I've got about 16% in the captain spot, 17% currently in the captain spot. So I really like Kyler today. As you said, And he's the type, you can play him in the captain spot. I don't think that you really need two pass catchers necessarily with Kyler Murray because of how much he does with his legs. So unlike Matthew Stafford, I don't think you need to force in the pass catchers, multiple pass catchers if you have him at captain, because Kyler can just do it with his legs. Yeah, I'm really intrigued by Kyler Murray today, and I believe he's one where it actually looks good in the tools as well. He has slight negative leverage at the captain spot, but positive leverage in the utility spot. So the tools love Kyler Murray as well.
Yep, they absolutely love him. And I think that there's something to be said because, yeah, on a full PPR site such as Life, but there's also bonuses that exist. And, I know that Kyler Murray on Odd Shopper, we'll talk about a little bit later, over 23.5 completions, one of the better props you can be utilizing over there. I think sneaky upside for 300 plus here for Kyler Murray, guy who's been turning into more of a pocket passer here of late. But let's keep it on moving here in 1 second. Of course, we talk quarterbacks, but let's talk Awesemo plus tools and content. The things that Neil is referring to, the boom bust tool, looking at the top stacks tool, looking at the top showdown and single game plays tool, all of this is readily available for $29.95 for the weekly pass. Hit up NFL Showdown LBL. That's all caps, one word. NFL Showdown LBL for 25% off your first week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Check out everything that we have behind the paywall, not just NFL, but NBA as well. The guys before us, we had Greg and Josh doing a great job of the NBA Live Before Lock show, and they're referring to all of the tools and content we have constantly, the projections, the ownership projections, the NBA boom bust tool. We have the MMA top fighters tool for MMA on weekends. We got done with a wild card this last weekend. If you check out all the things we have behind the paywall, I promise you, your life will be made a lot easier. It'll be taken care of. And that's $29.95 and 25% off of it when you use NFL Showdown LBL. That's once again, all caps, one word, NFL Showdown LBL. Stop guessing, start winning, and utilize this promo today. All righty, let's keep it on. Move into the running back position. Again, I never really know what to say considering these are two really good quarterbacks. It's like, we should probably have a lot of them, maybe a little bit less, if anything, but it's not like you're fading a quarterback unless you're making one lineup or something for like an NFL for a showdown here. But let's go back over to Matt Savoca here. Let's get back over to the running back position. The Rams, they have a pretty good spot here for Sony Michel. I saw in the chat that Sony Michel is a fish play. I'm going to just throw it out there. Sony Michel is not a fish play today. Talk to me about the best play on the slate, probably the best piece of value we have in my favorite guy, Showdown famous Sony Michel.
That's me eating the chalk right there, because that is this is a situation where I am going to take the volume, take the guaranteed touches in a slate where we have so much uncertainty. I saw it on the chat. We have so many playable players. I think that's a great way of putting it for this slate, and that makes it exciting. So outside of the quarterbacks, which we know get there on a one-game slate for the most part, especially a shootout, I want the certainty, especially the certainty of touches when it's at lower salary. So give me all the Sony Michel. I actually am over the field on Mekhi Sargent as well, because there's probably going to be somebody else who gets touches here. Last week we had Darrell Henderson active as like an emergency play. We'll see. That might be just a complete off the wall play there, but I'm going to have plenty of Sony Michel. You just want running backs who have 25 touch upside in a shootout, period. End of story.
I would agree with that. Makes a lot of sense to me here. Neil, how are we looking with a little Sony Michel here in our lives?
Yep, I'm in the exact same boat. I'm well over the field on Sony Michel at captain. I'm well over the field on Sony Michel in the flex. He's just too cheap for a guy who is going to be the lead rusher. I have a lot of interest. The tools love him. I mean, going back to the tools once again, yeah, he's got positive leverage in the captain spot. He's got massively positive leverage in the flex spot, the second highest in terms of positive leverage in the flex spot. So it's hard not to love Sony Michel today, even after I decreased his projection a lot because I didn't want to have like 100% Sony Michel. I still have just a ton of Sony Michel. And like Matt, as you could probably guess, I also am over the field. I'm about double the field on Mekhi Sargent just because it's likely that the number 2 running back is going to get some opportunities. He's only 600. We don't have any like smash value this week like I thought we did last week. So I think that he is an interesting play. And obviously, if Sony goes down, then obviously Mekhi Sargent will go completely off, most likely. And he's only 5.3% projected ownership. So I really like both of these running backs relative to their ownership projection.
Don't even throw that out into the world. Why would you do that?
I'm sorry, you're right.
Neil,
what I mean is, after Sony Michel scores 3-4 touchdowns, the Rams are up by 5 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They're going to give the ball to Mekhi Sargent to finish off the game. That's what
that was a save. That was that was a European EPL save, right? Wow. Okay. Well, Neil Sargent, that'll be fantastic. Looking forward to rostering a little bit of him. Mekhi Sargent, that's lovely. Projected for 2.4. Make sure if you want to get to a little bit like him, I believe, doesn't it set automatically to 2.5 for Showdown over on Fantasy Cruncher?
So I think the automatically goes to 3 is the minimum projection. So you're going to want to either change that. Rather than changing it lower, I actually just increase projections to 3 or more. But it all depends what you want. If you want to just stick to the projections that are in there, I would suggest lowering the minimum threshold for getting into lineups below 3.
I was just throwing it out there because it's just one of those things where somebody's like, well, I wasn't getting to him. Well, sometimes you won't get to them if your cap on the bottom left corner of your advanced settings screen is not high enough. Again, these are the kind of small things in Showdown where you might not get a player that we're talking about that's like the wide receiver 5 for a team or something if you have those minimums set up. So wanted to throw that out there.
I would add that that's actually something that I love. If a player is just below that 3 threshold, where I know that a lot of people aren't going to get to them for that reason, that makes me like them a lot more because, it's kind of arbitrary. Whether they're 2.8 or 3.2, it's not a huge difference, but it might stop some people from getting there because a lot of people use Fantasy Cruncher. A lot of people might not change that. So it actually makes me like a player more if they're over 2 but under 3.
Yep. Here's how I use it.
Go ahead.
I go into the advanced settings, and for all players who have a projection below 3, and sometimes I'll actually push it to 4 or 5 depending on the slate, I'll make their randomness 1,000.
Oh wow.
And so I'll just naturally have areas where they'll hit. That kind of feels like reality to me because we have no idea which player projected for under 2 points is actually going to hit. But we know that it's easy to be over the field on them. So we just want to make sure as we optimize these lineups, we get those mixed in. That's really all we're trying to do. And there are different ways Cruncher can let us happen.
I love that. Different strokes for different folks. Why not? It's what we're supposed to be doing on these shows, helping people make better lineups. I don't care how we do it. I just want to get them there. So whether you want to increase the randomness a ton, whether or not you want to just make sure that your cap or your minimum for the players that you're going to add in is low enough, or if you want to just boost their projection the way that Neil is going to, or just changes the projection manually, make sure you find ways to get to some of these low-owned guys, especially in a shootout game like this, where that one piece of differentiation is really all you need. So I'm loving what we're talking about here, boys, today. So let's jump on over here to the Arizona side. James Conner, who wants to start? Who wants to start here in this situation? Let's go to Matt Savoca. How do you feel about James Conner here in this spot for Arizona?
So I haven't finalized any of the research, but I'm doing some back testing and what I'm on rushing quarterbacks. And what I'm finding is that rushing quarterbacks and their running backs are more positively correlated than we might realize. They actually help each other more than quarterbacks and running backs generally help each other. And we actually have seen situations where like the Rams have had Stafford and Darrell Henderson in tournament winning lineups this year. So it can happen to any team. But I think that Kyler Murray being back secretly kind of helps James Conner. They're going to be in the red zone more often. And we know James Conner has the goal line looks locked down in this offense. He had that before Chase Edmonds went down. So I think Conner, with his guaranteed touches as well, and the fact that he's not as good of a value, not as low salary as Sony Michel, makes him an ideal tournament play.
Yeah, he's probably the guy I'm the most uncomfortable with here on this slate, where he's at salary-wise on every single site, whether that's DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, all three. I'm having a tough time getting to the James Conner that I think I probably need to have. Neil, you got to be the tiebreaker here for me. How do we handle James Conner without Chase Edmonds having not gotten activated?
Yeah, so Matt is kind of making me regret where I'm at right now because I am well under the field on James
Me
Conner.
too.
He actually looks pretty fine in the tools. He has very, very slight negative leverage in the utility spot. In the captain spot, he's projected for 9.5% ownership with 5.3% optimal rate at captain. So that's pretty negative leverage in the captain spot. But man, in the utility, he actually looks just fine. So I'm regretting that I'm well under the field on James Conner. That's really interesting research that Matt is doing, though. I mean, that's kind of, we looked at Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara was a good example of it this past weekend, that none of us really knew what to do with them. So that's kind of interesting. And they both did well. So it, lives up to the research that Matt is doing, what it would suggest. So yeah, I don't think that is a terrible play. I think I'm not getting there in part just because he is projected for 36% ownership and he is 9,800. So I feel like it takes more for James Conner to get there than a guy like Sony Michel or, some of the cheaper options and some of the wide receiver options. But I think that he is kind of a pay up to be contrarian, or he would be, but he's so expensive that I hesitate to call it to be contrarian because of how expensive he is and how owned he is at 36%. So I'm just not getting there a ton just because he's not my favorite of the expensive guys. I think I like obviously Cup and both quarterbacks more. So I think I'm going a little bit more stars and scrubsy. But I'm also getting to Sony Michel, who's kind of mid-range. So call it what you will. I'm not getting into a ton of James Conner. Maybe I'll do another crunch and try to get just a little bit more because I'm below half the field on James Conner, which also makes me kind of uncomfortable. But that's where I'm at.
So this morning, I was doing a deal for Yahoo and going through some of the plays there, and then was going through my normal process for DraftKings and FanDuel, and I was just kind of curious because it felt like I was more excited about all the Rams skill players because I feel like it's less diluted, I would say, than what it seems to be for Arizona. And somebody like Kyler can absorb a ton of the fantasy production if he has a game like last week where, 2 rushing touchdowns, 59 rushing yards on 10 attempts, where it just tempers everybody else's expectation. Whereas I know the ball's going through Sony Michel, and I know the ball's going through the air constantly here for the Rams. It's such a weird, interesting spot. This entire game is, especially with Arizona favored by 3. Maybe I might have to go hit a little +3 action. Maybe that's what I need to be doing, considering I'm much more excited about the road team and the road pieces. But anything else in terms of backup running backs here for you, Neil? And then I'll let Matt kind of close the loop on running backs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be playing some Benjamin just because he is the clear-cut number 2 behind James Conner, and he's only projected for 5.3% ownership. I'm getting well over the field. So we have them both projected, both Mekhi Sargent and Benjamin project for 5.3% ownership, unless that has changed since I did my crunch.
Same.
Okay. So they're both just so low owned, and they are both the clear number 2 running back, which gives me a lot of interest in both. I actually currently have a little bit higher on Benjamin than Mekhi Sargent. I have like 13% Benjamin. I do actually think that Mekhi Sargent makes a little bit more sense just because he is 2,000 cheaper at only 6,000. And both of them, I think, they're about as likely to put up a ceiling score. So I like both of those plays just as the number 2 running back who, depending on how the game script goes, could take on a bigger role. I think that they're both solid plays in a game where we're lacking for a ton of low-owned guys with ceilings. I think both Mekhi Sargent and Benjamin are those guys.
Anything else to add to running back here, Matt Savoca, before we move on?
That's really about it. Those 4 are the only ones in my player pool.
All right, because I'm excited to talk pass catchers. There's a lot of them to choose through and comb through. That's going to be a fun portion of the show. But the portion of the show we're on now is PrizePicks. And I've had a lot of people hit me up about PrizePicks because it seems to really be taking over. It's such a fun way to play fantasy sports, such a fun way to be involved in sports. It's not going to your sports book. If you don't have legalized betting in your state, you still probably have PrizePicks. So it makes it very easy to put together some of these parlays where you have 2, 3, 4, or 5 players that you're putting into a parlay, and you're able to get up to 10x your entry fee. If you play 5 players, you can still double your money in the event that you get 4 or 5 out, or 4 or 5 right. And if you get 3 of 5, you're still getting 0.4x. So you're not getting completely skunked the way that you would if you don't get 5 or 5 at a traditional sports book. So it makes it a little bit easier. And right now, not only are we running promo code Awesemo, where you get $100 first match deposit bonus, but you get 1 free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you sign up and play over at PrizePicks. All you do is you claim it at awesemo.com/prizepicks-promo. Get 1 free month No strings attached. Everything we offer behind the paywall right now with this promo. It does not get any easier, simpler, or better than this. It's a really fun site, super clean. Go download it over at the App Store. Go download it at Google Play. Go to the website at prizepicks.com. But go claim this offer here right now. No PrizePicks in Florida. That sucks. I'm not in Florida. I'm in California here. We have PrizePicks here. So definitely be checking it out if you're in California here with me. But I love this site. And not only do they have NFL, but they have things like NHL, they have NBA and college basketball, they have women's college basketball, they have women's European basketball. They'll be posting a bunch of e-games. They'll have disc golf, they'll have cricket. If you have a specialty sport, you'll have an opportunity to make some money over at PrizePicks. So let's head over to that site here now, and let's all pick out a prop here that we like for tonight's Monday night game. Let's go over to Neil here to start us off. What is your PrizePicks for this evening?
Yeah, so I'm seeing Sony Michel 64.5 rush yards. I'm taking the over there. In OddsShopper, we're seeing at BetMGM over 68.5. So we have an even lower number that we need to get over in PrizePicks. On the 68.5, it's a 61% expected win percentage, 15% positive ROI. We have Sony Michel projected for 86 rush yards. So it's pretty easy to take the over on 64.5 rush yards for Sony Michel.
Love it, love it, love it. Heading over to Mr. Matt Savoca. What do you have here on tap for tonight?
Let's stick with the Los Angeles Rams. And man, you could go to PrizePicks, look for tonight's game, and then see this and think, wow, that might be the biggest fish move you could make. And I'm still going to take it because I think that Cooper Kupp over 91.5 receiving yards is actually a really good deal. If you want to bet that in a prop play, you got to do over under 95.5 yards. And the Awesemo projections have Kupp getting to that number or over 67% of the time. So you can easily say that it's a 70% or better chance for him to get over that 91.5 yards mark. Let's go over Cooper Kupp.
And I am going to be doing quite a few videos for OddsShopper going forward, some social media videos. Check out the top 3 plays that we're going to have on OddsShopper all the time. And one of the best that's on the board that's available on PrizePicks is Kyler Murray to over 23 pass completions. I alluded to it a little bit earlier where I expect this game to be moving up and down. And Kyler Murray, 10 rushing attempts is such an outlier for him on this season. And again, maybe he's healthy. Maybe he's going to be out there running, but I expect this to be a very competitive game. I expect the Rams. I like the Rams to win outright here. And because of that, I'm just kind of expecting Kyler Murray from come from behind mode, 23 pass completions. He has his number 1 out there alongside him in DeAndre Hopkins, who we'll talk about here very shortly. I love over 23 pass completions. It really stands out on OddsShopper. It's the 3rd best bet we have on the board over there today. So hit up 23, the over on that number. This is PrizePicks, and we just put together a pretty nice 3-piece parlay there. You can do it as a power play where you get all 3. You can do it as a flex play where you play. You can get 2 out of 3 and still make 1.5x your money. Stuff like that is going to be very, very fun going forward. So check out PrizePicks, and thank you so much to them for their sponsorship here of the Live Before Lock show. Boys, we got a ton of pass catchers to talk about, and here we go. How is Cooper Kupp positive leverage? Let's start with you, Master Matt Savoca. How are we possibly getting the wide receiver 1 on planet Earth at the moment as a discounted piece over according to the Awesemo tools?
Hey, sometimes you got to listen to the tools, right? Because it's pretty simple to get overly complicated with this game script. I think with Tyler Higbee out, it actually shifts my thinking in this game that Cooper Kupp actually becomes a better play. I think they are just going to continue to lean on the receiving options that they have. And one thing I think you're definitely going to notice is a ton of 11 personnel, just 1 tight end on the field, which means you're going to have 3 wide receivers on the field. Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and Odell Beckham, possibly then mixing in Ben Skowronek here and there. I think Cooper Kupp is a lock for 10 targets and could easily see 12 to 15 targets if this game script turns into more of a shootout, or if they're playing from behind like they were the last time these 2 teams met. So I just really think Cooper Kupp becomes my most secure play on the slate, even though the value is there with Sony Michel, even though the upside is there with Kyler Murray. Cooper Kupp is still my favorite play. I am well over the field.
Yeah, the guy has 1,300 plus yards. He's got 11 touchdowns, and he's failed to record 10 targets only once this entire season. Neil, I'm very curious. How
It
much
was
of him are
9
you?
targets, right? It was a
Yeah, it was
9
nine
target game.
targets. Well, yeah, one time. But you know what? Again, technicalities. I'm just pointing it out to the people that only once has he failed to eclipse 10 targets, and that's just a ridiculous, ridiculous target share here. But Neil Orfield, you're going to be the deciding vote once again here. How much are you getting to Cooper Kupp in the captain spot as opposed to in the flex spot?
So I am over the field on Cooper Kupp in the captain spot. I've got 21.5% Cooper Kupp in the captain spot. I just think that if he has a big game, it's very likely that he is the top captain play on the slate. I think that he will outscore Matthew Stafford and probably Kyler Murray if he has a big game. I am about even with the field on Cooper Kupp in the flex spot. I have about 52%. The field has about 53%. So about even in the flex spot, but over the field on Cooper Kupp overall, given my captain ownership being about 5-6% over the field. So yeah, I'm playing a lot of Cooper Kupp. I think that he's a guy who gets so many targets every game. He's going to do well. This is after I lowered his projection a lot, just because I was trying to get to some of those other guys that are a little bit lesser owned. Even after lowering his projection 2.5 points, I still have a ton of Cooper Kupp, and I'm happy with it. I think that Cooper Kupp is a great play. I didn't want to have 100% just because he's a wide receiver. Wide receivers, even the best wide receivers, are somewhat volatile, and sometimes the touchdowns might just go somewhere else. But I want to have a lot of Cooper Kupp. I think that he's the most likely non-quarterback, actually the most likely player in the game to put up a huge score. So I have a ton of Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, his top percentage, 38.3%. That's double Kyler Murray. Double as far as the top score percentage. I mean, it's just kind of a ridiculous number that we're looking at. Again, Matthew Stafford, I am very, very surprised that he's as low down the list as what he is behind the likes of Kyler Murray top percentage. And again, that's part of how DraftKings scoring is going to kind of change that up a little bit. But Cooper Kupp, I'm just in love with for this game. You don't need us to explain that anymore. But man, how are we looking at these other options? Because Odell added to the fray here. Of course, there's no Robert Woods, but Van Jefferson is a guy that I was expecting to get to a lot of. I'm not getting to as much because the tools have him as negative leverage. So I've kind of turned more towards Odell. I've gotten him right the last 2 weeks for the first time in my entire life. I've never really rostered him, but new situation, new digs. How do we feel about these other Rams wide receivers in this spot?
Okay.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Okay, I'll go first. I did say, as I said earlier, that I want to hear Matt's take on some.
Let's go to Matt then. Screw you.
With Tyler Higbee.
Count your money. Count your money.
Gonna...
Yeah, it's fine. And then we'll go to Matt here. I did see in chat earlier that somebody was saying that Neil is a millionaire, so I definitely like what he's smoking. Nicholas Lynn, he's not smoking, but he's having a little sippy sip. What are we sipping tonight?
You don't know. Blue Moon.
Blue Moon. Okay, I didn't know if it was Surly. I missed.
No
Surly.
Orange. Didn't have an orange to put in there, but just Blue Moon.
See, that is so Midwest.
It's still delicious though.
You're just like going home, Neil Orfield. A little bit of spice of life of home. Here we go. Matt Savoca, talk to me about these ancillary wide receiver options from the Rams.
All right, so we got to focus on the time of the season where Robert Woods is out of the lineup, because obviously with Robert Woods in, this is a different offense altogether. So we're really focusing on weeks 10 through 14. That's a 3-game sample size for the Rams here, and that kind of matches perfectly with Odell Beckham finally getting ingratiated into the offense here. So during that time, of course, Cooper Kupp is leading the team in air yard share and target share. But surprisingly, Van Jefferson is second in target share. He's the only one at a 20% target share during that span, other than Kupp, of course. And he's actually leading the team in red zone targets. So I'm very interested in Van Jefferson. I will have plenty of Odell Beckham. He's had a 15% target share and 3 red zone targets, 26% of the air yards. That's right in line with Jefferson as well. Those are the 2 big play threats. I think it is a little bit of a fool's errand to figure out which one of those big play threats is going to hit. But we know that opportunity is headed their way because of the game script and the team they're playing against. We know that it's probably going to be a pass-heavy game. One of these 2 probably have a solid outcome. I just don't know which one it is. Right now, I'm slightly below the field on Van Jefferson, and I don't feel slightly over the field on Van Jefferson and slightly below on Odell Beckham, but I don't really feel strongly about that. If it were reversed, I wouldn't say that's crazy at all.
That's kind of where I'm at, where between these 2 guys now, there's not some huge, massive salary distinction that we're looking at. where I have to say, oh, well, that makes sense to me. And I don't really know what the opportunity is going to be. It's been a 2-week sample size that we've had in the Odell Beckham reign here. So 6,200 8K. I mean, for me, it's 800 or 1,800 difference that, yeah, for me, I just want to be targeting who's going to score more fantasy points. And I'm just going to basically short where the field thinks that they are more secure with a certain play. So, I mean, I'm looking at getting to Odell just as a result of that, because what I don't know is also an important part of being able to make DFS lineups, embracing that volatility and kind of moving on with your day. But Neil Orfield, do you have any kind of a lean on one or the other?
Yeah, so my lean is Odell, but I'm kind of in the same boat that I don't feel that confident in it. I just think that the field has a higher percentage of Van Jefferson than Odell, even though Odell is 1,800 cheaper. Odell is just another week into this offense. I think it's more likely that his role is going to pick up as the year goes on, but I'm not that confident in it. Currently, I'm over the field on Odell, and I'm actually kind of well under the field on Van Jefferson. Not really intentionally, just kind of the way that it's worked out in my last build. I think that I would like to be over the field on Beckham and under the field on Van Jefferson. Probably not to the extent that I am currently. I have under 8% Van Jefferson right now. I'd probably like to have more than that of Van Jefferson in a 150 build. But I think that I'm comfortable with having over the field on Beckham and under the field on Van Jefferson, just because the field likes Van Jefferson better. OBJ is cheaper. I think that he's probably the better receiver. So I'd rather have more Odell Beckham. And then the other one that I wanted to hear you guys' takes on is, so Matt said that he thinks that there's going to be more 11 personnel more likely this game. I'm curious if that makes you like Ben Skowronek more at all. If you think he's going to have more snaps as a result of Tyler Higbee being out, and whether that makes you like him better. And I'd like to hear both of your guys' thoughts on Ben Skowronek.
Yeah, we'll kind of get to that in here in a second, but I'll let you start off with it, because for me, it's such a deep piece. Like, I mean, for me, it's like I would pair him with defensive special teams more, wouldn't you? Like, if I had a couple shares, he's been returning the punts, right? That's kind of been his main specialty.
Ben Skowronek?
Yeah,
Yeah, but he got on. He had some snaps and some targets.
He's
last
been
week
on the
as well.
field. Yeah,
he's been on the field a little bit. Okay, for me, I had him paired
yeah.
as like a group where I was getting to a little bit of him with DST, like the minute DST, which I'm excited to talk about. We've already got people foreshadowing what happens if this game turns into a defensive slugfest. I would build some lineups with that in mind, because nobody else is doing it, and I sure am. So, Matt Savoca, go ahead and add anything you want to Skowronek.
I'm not bullish on Skowronek. I think it could happen. Obviously, it's a 1-game slate, but I think you're going to see a clear fourth on the totem pole target totem pole, and if you count Sony Michel, probably fifth. We have seen some variance in week 10. He had a 74% snap share, ran 29 routes, but in week 13, that's with Beckham and Van Jefferson and Cooper Kupp all healthy. He only ran 9 routes, saw 2 targets, ended up with 35 receiving yards. So he does have some big playability. You know, low-owned wide receivers with big playability is something you're going to look for if you're trying to win a tournament. So if you're entering 150, Neil, I totally get the Ben Skowronek play. Stick your Skowronek out on that play.
Wow.
But
wow.
but I
Holy
think
crap.
that it's still something that it's low probability, and you're probably getting below 50% snap share.
Okay. Yeah, he had 24% snap share last week. So I was hoping that maybe the Higbee news would lead a lot of people to the tight end, and maybe I could get different by trying to go to this fourth wide receiver. But maybe that was wishful thinking.
I don't have anything to add.
You're just
my mind has exploded. Let's go to the Arizona side of the ball before I throw up. That'd be great. DeAndre Hopkins. He used to have a lot of upside. You know, hasn't had a lot of upside this season. DeAndre Hopkins. He has a great target zone, or a great red zone target share. But Neil Orfield, how much of him are you getting on this slate? Because he feels like the dude I'm the most scared of. I'm getting to a little bit more James Conner years. We've kind of like revamped some things, but I'm getting to like way under the field DeAndre Hopkins, and I hate myself.
Yep, I'm also under the field. Both captain spot. We got him projected for 7% captain ownership. I've got 2%, and then in the flex spot we have. I'm projected for 31.3% ownership. I have 22.8. I kind of would like to get higher. I don't know if the projection has factored in Jalen Ramsey being out. I guess it probably has, but we don't have him projected very well. So even after I boosted his projection quite a bit, I'm still only getting to 23% in the flex, 2% in the captain spot. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable. He hasn't shown the upside yet this year. I think that if he is healthy, he still could get there. It wouldn't be really surprising to anybody if he puts up 102 touchdowns. He hasn't done it yet this year, but man, I'm a little bit uncomfortable being as under the field as I am, but that's where I'm at. You can only play so many players in so many lineups, and he's a player that I had to get less to get more of others. So I guess I have to kind of accept it. I'm a little bit under the field on DeAndre Hopkins.
Are you doing the same thing here, Matt Savoca?
Yeah, you just got to follow the tools in this situation. One of the stats we talked about in our top plays tool is the percentage chance that a player will be the top overall scorer. And on DraftKings, Cooper Kupp has a 40%, or I think it's a little under that now, 38% chance. DeAndre Hopkins is sitting at 5%. So this is a totally different level of probability compared to the top receiver on the other side here. And yeah, his stat lines this year, we can obviously take last year into account here, but this year's stat lines have not been good for DeAndre Hopkins. He doesn't have a single double-digit target game. He doesn't have a single game over 90 yards receiving. He hasn't been over 66 yards receiving in his last 4 outings. Yeah, he gets there with 2 touchdowns, but even then, he's probably still scoring about 20 DraftKings points. And then what is his probability of the 100-yard bonus? It's pretty darn low. Not saying he can't get there. He's a great player, but definitely under the field tonight.
It's such a tough spot, and he hasn't looked right. He hasn't looked the same as he has in previous seasons. And part of it is also AJ Green's been serviceable, but coming off of only 1 target for him in the last game, AJ Green still on the field quite a bit. I think this has kind of been the main thing that I've done a lot is just figuring out how much I want to read into coming off of a bye week. How much should we be looking at some of the snap counts for these wide receivers? And I can tell you one thing. The tools are very bullish on Rondale Moore, and Rondale Moore is going to be one of my largest stands that I've made in probably a showdown all season long. If you head over to OddsShopper right now, it is one of the best props. It is the best prop at over of 23.5 yards for him. I freak out a little bit because he's still playing sub 50% snaps, but when he's on the field, he's not out there to block. He's out there to make plays. Neil Orfield, how do you feel about Rondale Moore and some of these ancillary Arizona options?
Yeah, so I'm in the same boat. I'm bullish on Rondale Moore. I mean, just because the tools love him so much, he is the most positive leverage of anybody on the slate. We have him at a 21.1% leverage score. So we have him owned in the utility at, actually, I don't know where this number is coming from because these numbers don't add up. Anyway, he has a very positive leverage score in the tools, both at captain and in the utility spot. At captain, he's only projected for 8.6% ownership, but a 15.6% chance of being the optimal captain. So you love that. And then in the utility, we've got him projected for 29.3% ownership, but a 43.4% chance of being in the optimal lineup at utility. He's just too cheap for what we expect from him. It's a little bit scary to have as much of him as I do, because I have a ton of Rondale Moore, even after lowering his projection as well. I think if I didn't lower his projection, I would have 100% Rondale Moore. I think he's more volatile than that because you are counting on him doing something when he gets the ball. He might not get the ball a ton, but he's a talented player and he's so cheap that I think that the field isn't really there. He's about the same ownership as DeAndre Hopkins, who is 9,600. So yeah, I'm going to be playing plenty of Rondale Moore today.
All right. And if you guys take a look at OddsShopper there, we've got Rondale Moore. Again, that was a great job by Mike Lawrence pulling up everything there. That's the easiest way to be able to compare how your projections are going to look alongside. If something's off, you will be able to very quickly identify what that would be. But 23.5 is just a low number and it freaks me out. But then you factor in that he's 2K. You factor in that he's seeing nearly 50% of snaps and he is seeing a decent target share when he's on the field. So Matt Savoca, are you with us? And is there anybody else? Do you have a differentiation or a lean between Christian Kirk and AJ Green for tonight?
Yeah, so I am over the field on Rondale Moore, but I am not as bullish on the situation as you guys. I do think that Rondale Moore is a great player. I don't want to go all Makajeski on us because that guy's got college football licked. I know nothing compared to him, but I love this guy coming out of Purdue. Just a complete yak monster, a player you just want to get the ball into his hands and have him go. And he doesn't run routes on all of the Arizona Cardinals dropbacks. In fact, if you look at routes per dropback, he doesn't look exciting at all. But if you look at targets per route run, he's top 15 in the NFL. When he is out there running a route, he is often getting open and getting the ball. Love players like that on a one-game slate. No problem with it. But I am noticing some pretty big differentials in the amount of routes he's running based on the game script. Only runs 10 routes against Chicago last week, positive game script. In more shootout style games, he's running more like 21, 25, 26 routes. That's what you want. That's what you need in this kind of situation, in this one game slate. So I certainly think it's possible that he gets to that 25, 26 routes run. Then you're going to be really happy you rostered him. I am a little bit more bullish on AJ Green than I think the tools might suggest. I just think that there could be some matchup situations where they're rotating players over with Jalen Ramsey out, leaving AJ Green available for some easy one-on-one coverage, because Kyler Murray has shown the willingness to just throw it up to AJ Green this year. So I am a little bit more bullish on Green, and certainly more so than Kirk, excuse me.
All right, we've got Twisted Reality Gaming. First off, can we talk about how much BS yesterday's game was? Which of them? We had a lot of them, and I'm assuming the Sunday night one. It was pretty crazy. But now, in all seriousness, on FD is Kyler a good play, even though he's 17K with Ron M. What do you think about him over on the FanDuel site, Neil Orfield?
Yeah, I think Kyler makes a lot of sense. I think he makes a lot of sense at the MVP. He is currently my most rostered MVP on FanDuel. I just think that, he has as much upside as just about anybody. It's a half PPR as opposed to full PPR, which takes away some of the glamour from Cooper Kupp. We've actually got Kyler projected for better than Cooper Kupp on FanDuel. We've got Kupp is projected better on DraftKings. Kyler's projected better on FanDuel. So yeah, I think that Kyler is a great play on FanDuel. Probably the best MVP play on the slate. He's also projected for, this is kind of shocking to me, Kyler's only projected for 14.5% ownership in the MVP spot on FanDuel, whereas Cooper Kupp is 17.5, James Conner 13.5. So he's pretty low owned in the MVP spot. So I really like Kyler on FanDuel, especially in the MVP spot.
All right. And then, so we're going over there. Oh my God, Joel Embiid just got ruled out. What planet am I on?
Saw that.
Is that after lock of that game? It is after lock of that game, isn't it?
Oh no.
I think it is. Dude, what in the world?
Oh man.
Whatever.
Brutal.
All right, back to NFL because I need to now chase. Let's go. Can I enter more contests for NFL tonight? We'll see here. It's Andre Drummond night, hopefully. I will have to take a look at that. What a planet we live on right now. Matt Savoca, hey, make me feel better here because I think that game is locked, but whatever. Great. We're not going to Paul George. We're not going to George. We're not Paul George. Matt Savoca doesn't know what we're talking about. Do you know what I'm talking about, Neil Orfield?
Not going to Paul George.
We're going to see if YouTube chat knows, because it was just my freak out that we had once upon a time. But hey, welcome to If You Played Drummond, you are the happiest person in the world. Let's continue on with our day. Let's get to tight end. Let's talk tight end here. I'm going to start with Matt Savoca here on the top end. We got Zach Ertz from the Arizona side. Kendall Blanton, though, is the guy we want to talk about first. He's $400. He's assumed to be the guy who's going to fill in and be the next Tyler Higbee. No, I don't know about that, but he's $400 and he should be on the field an absolute ton here in this spot. How do you feel about him on the Rams?
I don't really have a strong feeling about these players. I really just don't. I am going to be getting to them, but I'm using the tools as my guide, to be completely honest. In my opinion, it just makes me more interested in the wide receivers on this team. But obviously, a one-game slate, tight ends score touchdowns on one-game slates. This is just very basic science at this point. So you've got to play all the Kendall Blanton you absolutely possibly can. For that reason, no. I mean, he's going to be on the field. They need a tight end. I just don't see Matt Stafford suddenly prioritizing someone they didn't put on the field or didn't feel the need to, at least.
One of my many dramatic scenes. Yes, it really is. It's not fun to lose money to something you can't do anything about. But Neil Orfield, we can do something about who we roster at tight end. How much Kendall Blanton is too much Kendall Blanton?
I mean, play as much as I think this is a spot where, you can look at the tools. It's sort of hard for anybody to know what to do. Nobody has a
Yep.
crystal ball. We haven't seen this before. So I think that, I use the tools for most things. But when it comes to these situations where it's like anybody's, we're all just guessing essentially. So I am currently over the field on Kendall Blanton and I'm over the field on Bryson Hopkins. I don't really feel strongly. I kind of wonder, it's one of those spots where you might want to go different from the field because we don't really know whether they're going to be using Kendall Blanton a ton more than Bryson Hopkins. If Bryson Hopkins is going to get in there for a lot of snaps, we don't know what to expect really. I'm just kind of spray and pray in this one. I'm a little bit over the field on Kendall Blanton, a little bit over the field on Bryson Hopkins. I don't think that there's really a right or wrong way to play. I'm also over the field on Ben Skowronek. So, in the just in case they're going to more wide receivers instead. So I don't know what to expect in this situation. It's guesswork. Take your best guess. Both Kendall Blanton and Bryson Hopkins are negative leverage in the Showdown tool. So don't love that, but I think they're both fine plays.
We're just
from
looking
an
for
athleticism.
anything.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we are. But I mean, from an athleticism standpoint, I will say Hopkins looks to have Blanton beat here. He's a little bit smaller, 6'4", 245 compared to 6'6", 260, I believe. But, Hopkins runs a respectable 40 compared to Blanton, who runs a 4.95. That's 9th percentile among tight ends. If he's on the field for Tyler Higbee level snaps, like 90% plus, then I'm interested. But how do we really know that?
But that's the fun part. I think that's exactly what Neil's saying, is that if the projections are going to say, we assume this to be the role, and therefore, because you got to give the role to somebody, right? Like you have to assign somebody the Tyler Higbee role, but you just kind of drop it because it's not Tyler Higbee out there playing football. It's somebody else, but somebody's going to play the snap. Somebody has to at tight end.
Yeah, well, even if to that point, like Tyler Higbee was 4th on the target totem pole by a pretty wide margin, sitting at 13% target share over the Rams' last 3 games. That's butting up against the running backs' target share here. So what role really is that? The snap share is good, and one game slate snaps are fine. We'll take it, but I don't know.
All right. Neil, anything else to add to tight end here from the Rams?
No, I mean, I think that's
Okay.
my thoughts is we don't really know what to do. I'm playing both.
All right, 5 minutes here to go. Let's talk Zach Ertz. Let's talk defense and kicker, because again, defense and kicker should move pretty quickly here on this game. It's going to be contrarian for sure, but talk to me about Zach Ertz in this spot, Neil.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit under the field on Zach Ertz just because there are other players that interest me a little bit more. I'm a big Zach Ertz guy, so it's hard to say, that I'm not playing a ton of Zach Ertz, but he's 22% projected for 22% ownership. That's just pretty high. I'm a little bit under the field there. I don't think I have any Zach Ertz at captain. You can play him. I have maybe 1 share. I think I have 1 share of Zach Ertz at captain. You can play him. He's a solid play. Should get some targets, but he's not my favorite of the receiving options.
Anything to add to Zach Ertz whatsoever over there for you, Matt Savoca?
This team does not pass a lot in the red zone, and you need tight ends that score touchdowns. Since week 9, the Zach Ertz has only had 3 red zone targets. Guess what? That's the most on the Arizona Cardinals during that span.
That's pretty crazy to think about. All right, let's talk some kicker, because again, I think being over a little bit on a high scoring game, 15%, kind of where they're both at. Matt Savoca, what are you doing with kicker here?
Yeah, I got some kickers, got more Matt Gay, and I don't have strong feelings other than we expect high scoring, we expect a close game, and that means kickers are on the table.
And for you, Neil?
Yep. So same boat. I have more Matt Gay than Matt Prater. I projected them the exact same. I guess I got to more Matt Gay because he's 200 cheaper than Matt Prater. I'm going to be under the field on both of them, just slightly on Matt Gay, a little bit more on Matt Prater. I think that they're in play for sure. I just think that there are other options who are a little bit more interested in a little bit lower ownership.
All right. And defense. We've had people asking about defense. Take us home a little bit here, boys. We got Neil. I'm very low on defense here in this spot. Can a pick 6 occur? Yes. So I'm not zeroing them out by any means, but I am much, much more inclined on a PPR site to just be jamming in a bunch of pass catchers and moving on with my day.
Yep, same boat. I think I'm under the field on both. I actually have, I think, one share of the Rams defense, which wasn't really by design. I was trying to get a little bit more, but I'm fine with it. I have about 10% Cardinals defense. I think that they're in a slightly better spot, slightly better defense, and Matthew Stafford can make some mistakes. So I have a little bit more Cardinals and Rams, but I'm under the field on both.
All right. And for you, Matt Savoca, as we start getting out of here, how much defense are you getting to?
I'm getting more Cardinals defense than the field right now. We have seen bad games from the Rams against good teams recently. So why not build some lineups that include that in the range of outcomes? So I'm under the field on the Rams and over just a little bit on the Cardinals. I even have some of them at captain. I know that's a little wild, but why not?
You're wild. Look at you. That's great. I like that about you. I like that about you. This is a good thing. We did have one super chat. It's Twisted Reality Gaming a lot. Again, a lot of people are going to make the mistake in thinking Hopkins is the play. How good are you feeling about Rondale Moore putting up more than 10 fantasy points? I hope he does, or I'm probably in trouble. So how are you feeling, Matt Savoca, about Rondale Moore?
You just want 20 routes. I think you can do it. I think you can do it on 20 routes.
You can do it. No, we're not going to say that. That's a bad idea. Neil Orfield, Rondale Moore for the win.
Yeah, we've got him projected for over 11 fantasy points. So I think that it's more likely than not that he puts up over 10. I just think that he is kind of a boom bust play. So it's not like he has a 90% chance of hitting it. I think he's probably got a 55, 60% chance of being over 10 fantasy points. I hope he can do it because I have a lot of them.
I hope you can too. I have a lot of them as well. We're getting final score predictions here. Everybody's asking that on our way out. I think that's a fun way to end the show. Matt Savoca, who do you have in this game? Final score prediction.
Cardinals 31, Rams 24.
Neil?
Man, that is close to what I was going to say. I'll change mine. I'll go Cardinals 28. I'll keep Rams 24. Cardinals 28, Rams 24.
Rams 37, Arizona 24. We are looking at 61 points. We are watching the Rams throw for a bunch of yards. I'm enjoying it. I hope you guys enjoy this game. I hope this lives up to the hype because it should be a fun one compared to other games we had. I mean, as much as, Bears and Packers actually had some offense, it was still garbage football. But I digress. My NFC North bias coming in at the end. Neil Orfield, Millie Maker winner. Thank you so much. Matt Savoca, singer to all the people. Amazing Awesemo contributor here, full-time hanging out. You get to see me so much more. Aren't you so excited?
I am stoked. I'm stoked. We have a lot of fun on these.
We do have a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun too. And if you did, hit that like button. That's all I want for Christmas is views. So that'd be great. That's a corny way to kind of finish this one up. He's Neil Orfield. He's Matt Savoca. I'm Eric Lindquist. Same time, same time. Well, whatever. See you next Monday. Bye.